Yo, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Anas. I'm a final year medical student studying in London, and in today's video we're going to cover the specific details and the strategy that I was using in my previous degree, which was in biomedical science, in order to consistently hit top grades. I mean, all praise to God, I was hitting over 80s on a regular, and you might not know this, but in the UK, the highest grade, which is first class, is equivalent to 70%. So I was well above that. So it's safe to say that I was doing kind of decent. But the issue is that there's a lot of misconceptions. Because the top grade, which is first class, is 70%, a lot of people think and feel like it's pretty much impossible to hit over 70s, hit 80s and 90s. But it's possible with the right strategy and the technique. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So the way we're going to structure this is start off by talking a bit about how to prioritize learning, right? And what kind of information it is that you need to learn and how to figure that out. And we're going to use something called, or something that I call, the circle of knowledge. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to move on to talk about the accumulation stage, which essentially is just getting all the information that you need to know into one place. And then moving on from that, it's going to be the internalization stage, which is essentially just getting all the information into your head. So it should be a really useful video, whether you're studying in the UK, you're studying elsewhere, whatever degree you're doing. But one thing I'd like to say is I'm going to link my Instagram here. It should pop up. Head over and follow that. Low key trying to hit 10k, and that man's active on the gram, so just do that. I do it after the video, obviously. Like, don't turn this off, because I mean, this is going to be useful, but after, just do the thing in it. Alright, so let's talk a bit about prioritizing learning. So what's important to note at this stage is that at an undergraduate level or a bachelor's degree, there's a finite amount of information that you could be tested on. And the reason for that is that the degree or the exam is limited by the curriculum or the syllabus or the specification or whatever. And this essentially means that they can't ask you any questions outside that which has been taught. And oftentimes the exams are structured in such a way that they don't necessarily reward loads of extra reading, in particular in the first and second year. In third year, yeah, so you do need to do quite a bit of extra reading, but that still needs to be related to kind of what you're learning. And so it's important to play the game smart and use this to your advantage. And the way you can do that is by prioritizing what you learn and figuring out specifically the things that are important from the course and what's been taught. And the way I think about prioritizing learning is through something I call the circle of knowledge. And I've made this up, but still it works. And the way you can think about it is like an egg, right? So the circle of knowledge has 3 layers, the way an egg has 3 layers. Now you're going to be like, oh, okay, an egg is not a circle, it's not a sphere, how's that going to work? Relax, sit down, the concept still works. The innermost part of that circle, which is going to be the core, is like the egg yolk. And here is the critical information, the most important information that you need to learn, and not learning this can jeopardize your grade and potentially fail you. And also what's within this inner circle has the highest likelihood of coming up. And that's why it makes sense to spend most of your time within this inner circle. And then you have the second layer of the circle of knowledge, or in terms of the egg analogy, is going to be the egg white. And this is the information that is completely testable. Yeah, so if it comes up or they ask a question about it, you can't really complain because you should know it. It's been taught, it's in the curriculum, it's in the syllabus. And so it's important to learn this information, but some of it is going to be more important than others. Then we move on to the last layer, or the third layer of the circle of knowledge, or in terms of the egg analogy, again, is going to be the shell. And it's the thinnest part, it's the least important part, and this represents all the extra reading that you might do within your course. Specifically, this includes any information that is tangentially related to any topics that has been taught in the course. So what you might notice is that the further you move out of that core, the more likelihood you have of diminishing returns. And this takes us nicely into the concept of diminishing returns. You want to have your highest value for the time you're spending. So for example, if I decide to study for 3 hours today, I want 3 hours to be spent on a topic that will definitely come up. If I spend 3 hours on a topic that doesn't come up at all, then essentially I've wasted my time in exam terms. If I spend 3 hours on some topic that will improve my personal development, whatever, the purpose is different. Now we're talking about getting high grades. We're talking about 80, 90, 100%, right? Then in that sense, you've wasted your time. I mean, just to take this example a bit further and showcase the benefit of spending your time within the core area and the second layer, is if I spend 3 hours studying today and I'm within that area, maybe out of 3 hours, 2.5 hours will be spent on topics that will probably come up. So 2.5 hours out of 3 hours, that's what, 83% specificity. That's high specificity. I mean, the time I'm spending is going on specifically stuff that will come up. But what a lot of people tend to do is that they just haphazardly study, and they divide their time such that they spend a lot of time on the shell and maybe a little bit in the core. And so out of the 3 hours that they spend their time studying, maybe only 10 minutes was spent on a topic that came up in the exam. Right? And so just working out the percentages and the specificity there, what's that, like 5% specificity? Bruh, like, that's the issue. You're saying that you're studying 3 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, but if you're spending your time in the shell, then you're wasting your time. You see the dichotomy here? The way you spend your time matters. The smart student isn't the one who's able to memorize the most. The smart student is the one who spends their time memorizing that which comes up the most. Oh. Bruh, hey, that's some, hey, bruh, tell me that's not solid bars right there. Comment in the comment section below if you like these bars out here. Bars of wisdom and that. Yeah, I mean, I should have a couple white hairs with that kind of madness. I'm playing. All right, okay, but yeah, honestly, spend your time where your time matters. So the logical question that comes out of all of this is, you're telling us that we need to spend our time memorizing all of this important information, stay in the inner circle, whatever, How do we actually find out which information is important? I'm going to tell you now, don't worry about it. Number one, you need to be well connected with the seniors in your course at your university. Now, for example, if I'm a first year biomedical science student at King's, or I'm a second year history student at Oxford or Cambridge or Queen Mary, whatever, it doesn't really matter, then I should be talking to the second year biomeds at King's or the third years at Oxford or whatever. I need to be talking to loads of them, and I should be discussing a range of things. Some of those things include, do you have any notes? Okay, do you have any resources? And that's going to save you time and make things more efficient. It can save you time from having to research loads of things and find out answers if they're already in the notes of the person who's your senior, essentially. Yeah, so do you have any notes? Do you have any resources? How did your exam go? What kind of information is important to study from the lectures? Like, for example, sometimes some lecturers give really good hints about the kinds of questions they ask from their lectures in the exams, and some don't really do that. So if you speak to your seniors, they can tell you, stay attentive in so-and-so lecture because he gives hints about this and this and that, or you don't need to go to this person's lectures, just look at the slides or whatever. See, so there's loads of wisdom that you can get from these people. So there's resources, there's ask about what kind of stuff is important, ask about exams. So what kind of stuff came up in your exams? Oftentimes that's okay to discuss. You can also ask things like, do you have any past paper questions? What came up in your exam? And obviously that's an iffy area. If that's allowed, if past papers are allowed at your uni, then you can ask that. If it's not allowed, then don't ask that. We don't want anyone to get in trouble out here. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, so discuss those kind of things. And also if they tell you, for example, so-and-so essay came up in my year, so like in 2014, it came up in 2013, it came up in 2012. Yeah, the highest likelihood is that it will also come up for you. So if you want to spend your time wisely, then spend your time learning that essay. At the very least, you shouldn't go into that exam without having done that topic. Now, moving on from there, we're going to talk about the second layer of the circle of knowledge, that which is testable. And that which is testable is anything that's been taught within your course. That includes, most importantly, lectures and lecture slides. Okay, and then there's also supplementary information. So there's like seminars, there's like practicals of if your uni does that. There is, what else, tutorials, small group teaching, all of that, yeah, can come up, and you should be familiar with those topics in case they come up in order to get the highest grades. Then we're talking like 70, 80, 90%. Don't go into the exam not being at least familiar with these topics. Then you have the outer shell. Now, if you want to spend your time wisely in the outer shell, then read extra information on stuff which is within that core circle. So for example, if I know that this immunology essay about T killer cells comes up every year, then what I should be doing is reading extra information about T killer cells and then putting that into the essay that might come up. So I'm reading about information that is tangentially related to the topic that might come up, and that is the best way to spend your time in the shell of the egg, or in the third layer, or in the periphery of the circle of knowledge. Now, we've talked a bit about how to figure out what kind of stuff you need to be learning. Once you've done this, you move on to the accumulation stage at university. And what I used to try and do is to cover all of the information that's been taught in the shortest period of time. So let's use another analogy. Let's think about a square. Okay, let's call this the first class square. So when you start your semester, when you start your term, what will happen is that this square is going to be empty. And as you progress through the term and the semester, you want to fill up this square. Okay, you want to fill it up to 100%. And what I like to think about is that within this square, I want everything that I need to know for that exam to be within the square. Yeah, I want to collate everything into one space. And the way you can do that is in various ways. Everyone does it differently. You can do handwritten notes, you can do Word documents on a folder, you can use OneNote, you can use Notability, who cares, just as long as you just put it in one place. Now, the other option is that you cover information and memorize it at the same time. Yeah, so I separated those. I cover the information and put it in one place, then memorize after. But there is a slight difficulty with that, and I preferred the accumulation than learning for a number of reasons. The first reason is that as I cover different topics, especially when they're related to each other, right? Say I cover one topic first, okay, I cover topic 1. That gives me one specific understanding of that topic. And when they're related to each other, I might cover loads of other topics, and then a month later, I cover another topic, which then changes my understanding of the first one. Now, if I spent a few days learning this topic in one way, and then it just changed my understanding like a month later, then I need to like unlearn this. Yeah, do you get where I'm coming from? I've literally just wasted my time learning this in the incorrect understanding. Ideally, what you want to be doing is learn things once and learn it in the correct understanding of that topic. So there's that one issue for efficiency. The second issue is because of frequency. Yeah. So think about it like this. If you have to cover and learn topics, so you have to make notes and learn topics, it takes a lot longer. So like I cover a topic, make notes and learn it, then I cover a topic, make notes and learn it, cover a topic, make notes and learn it, but then by the time I get here, I've completely forgot the first one. It's almost like I've never even seen this topic before. This used to happen loads of times. Like you cover a topic and then it's almost like you never went through it because it's been too long. You need to have some frequency. The more times you go through a topic, the higher likelihood there is of remembering it in a short space of time. Actually, there's perhaps a third reason why I used to accumulate all the information into the first class square. And the reason is in the name. Because once I've put all of that information, all of the topics, all of the notes into one place, then I know within myself, if I cover this first class square, I'll get a first class, I'll get an 80%. I don't need to focus on going through more lectures as I'm memorizing this. I want to memorize this, and that's all I want to do, and that's what I want to focus on, and that's it. Then, once you've covered the accumulation stage, so we've talked about the circle of knowledge, we've talked about the accumulation stage, now comes the internalization stage. Because obviously, if you can't recall that information, then what was the point of all of that? Yeah, and there's a number of ways that you can internalize the information, and the key way to do that is active recall. So what I used to do is have a notebook with loads of one-liners. Yeah, so I'll have a question, for example, arrow, answer, and I'll fill this up. So my whole semester will be filled up in this one notebook, and then I'll just spend time covering this notebook. Alternatively, you can use flashcards, there's no issue with that. Alternatively, you can use Anki, Quizlet, physical flashcards. You can also put the information on an Excel sheet. So Ali Abdal's made some great videos on how to study, and one of his techniques is putting it on an Excel sheet. I'll link the video below, and that's another way of doing it. Doesn't really matter as long as you're utilizing active recall. And in addition to active recall, the other thing that I used to find really, really useful is high frequency studying. The higher times you've covered a topic, the shorter amount of time it should take to go through it the next time. So let's use a graph in order to kind of make sense of things. So you've got the y-axis, you've got the x-axis. On the y-axis, you've got time taken to cover topic. On the x-axis, you've got number of times covered, yeah, or number of times the topic's been covered. Now, the very first time you cover the topic or you cover the semester is going to take you a long time to cover it, right? So it might take you a whole day, yeah? Say 8 hours to cover the semester or to cover the topic. Then the next time you cover it, yeah, maybe the following day, it might only take you 6 hours. And then the following time you cover it, it might only take 4 hours, then 3 hours, then 1 hour, then 30 minutes, then 15 minutes. So you can see the graph, it just goes kind of like that. So the higher number of times you cover a topic, the less time it takes. And so what used to happen with me, and this is exactly what I used to do, is by the time I get to like a week before the exam, I'll be able to cover the whole semester. We're saying like 80 to 100 lectures plus practicals and whatever, about 10 to 15 times in a day. Once you get to that stage where you're covering a whole semester 10 to 15 times a day, then, I mean, there is no way you're not gonna get like 70, 80, 90%. Especially if your first class square contains all the information that you need to know in order to get that high grade. So it's all dependent on this now. So I hope it all kind of makes sense. If everything's within that square and you've learned that square, you should get the grade. Yeah, and if you spent most of your time within the core aspect of the circle of knowledge and also the second layer, then everything within your square is going to be of high importance. So I hope that all makes sense and that I haven't been just waffling. And if you like the video, then like the video. If you have any questions, let me know. But this is the specific strategy that I used to use, and I was hitting consistently top 5%, like top 10 people in my year, first and second year, and then we didn't really have the rankings after that because different people did different topics, but I got a first class, ended it there, and it went well. And yeah, the reason why I mentioned grades isn't really kind of to brag or anything like that. In fact, when I was in first year and it was my first month in uni, I don't know what the hell I was doing. I was just sitting there like just trying to read the lecture as if it's just gonna go in by osmosis. And then I remember I was trying to print something out and there was this person in the year above, and yeah, they were trying to help me print this stuff because I didn't know how to do it. And then we got into a conversation about like how to do well, and then I asked what kind of grades they got, and this person said like something ridiculous like 80-90%, and I was like, what? Like, is that even possible? And then they mentioned how they were doing it, and I literally just took that technique and I just essentially the kind of groundwork all came from that, and I was really inspired by that, and that's what I want to share with you guys. So I hope that's useful. If you like the video, then like the video. Go hit up the Insta, bro. We need to hit 10k ASAP, no long thing, yeah. And subscribe to the channel, like the video. With liking the video, I'm not saying like the video just to say like, oh, I got bare likes, but it actually helps the algorithm, the video to be more promoted and come up on the recommendation page and all of that. Safe.